Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Richest Men in Town podcast. I'm Mike Freeman, and along with my good friend and co-host Tyler Gould, we're excited to welcome you to our little podcast project. Tyler and I are just a couple of middle-aged husbands and dads driven to live our best lives. We want to be better every day, so here we'll be sitting down with great people. Not famous people, but great people that we admire, to learn their secret to living the rich life. Probably not the rich life you're thinking of. Our guests come in humbled and surprised at the invitation and hopefully leave feeling proud and grateful, realizing just how good they really have it. So pull up a chair, stay a while, and raise a glass with us as we toast our guests to the richest men in town. What's happening, Tyler Gould?
Tonight is a good night, man. I mean, look, it's you and I tonight on the richest men in town. And, we don't have a guest. We thought it'd be good to kind of take a breather for a second and just reflect on some things and really talk about some things that you and I have on our minds that are important for us to be, Look, I'll be honest with you. When I talk about some of these things with you, I'm really hoping that you're going to hold my feet to the fire at the end of the day on some of this stuff. So,
well, can I just speak to that a little bit? I mean, I'm curious to see how you're feeling about how this is going because, man, the experiences that I've had with you and our guests have been amazing. They've been inspiring, but I kind of feel like my Tetris screen is filling up. Like you remember that old game where things come at you really fast and it's like, oh yeah, I'm going to do that. Oh yeah, I'm going to do something with that. And in the end, it's just like you start getting gridlocked and nothing happens. And I really do feel like the guests that have come on our show have given us some gifts. Yeah. And I think we've done a good job periodically, having conversations and processing what we've learned. But, I'm with you on the accountability, brother. I'm with you.
Man. Well, and so here's a thought, because I agree with what you said. And I think in the past, we've done some of these shows by ourselves and we've kind of reflected on some of the things the guests have taught us, right? But I want to do something a little bit different tonight, okay?
I'm in. I'm on
I'd
board.
I'd love to take some of the things that we've learned from our guests and applying to some things that we're doing right now, and see if we can kind of clear our Tetris screen a little bit by putting some of these principles to work tonight. So,
and I would agree. And by extension, things we've said to our guests is that we may be in someone's ear.
Yeah.
And someone may be struggling with the very thing that we tackle. Right. Yeah. And from time to time, if we can bring it back and tackle and spend the time that we have without guests getting into something that is going to help somebody else as well, I'm all in.
Yeah. So let's talk about the very light topic of forgiveness. All right. Can we jump down that one for a second?
We're just like no hors d'oeuvres.
No, we are going for the main course, man.
Give me the main course. Forgiveness.
All right. Let me give you where I'm coming from right now. Family is complicated, right? It's interesting because sometimes, the people that we love the most or that we're closest to are the people who maybe end up hurting the most or hurting us the most, right? So I was thinking about I was lucky growing up. I had 4 sisters. I have 4 sisters. I didn't had. It wasn't had, past tense. I have 4 sisters and a brother and my parents. And so it was a very active, loud household, And at some point in time, and we were close, we struggled. We had our struggles as a family for sure. But as adults, the siblings have always been close. And several years ago, 10 years ago, some things happened and those relationships are not the same, And I will admit right out of the gate, like I am not the most thoughtful guy all the time. And I'll give you an example of this.
What?
All right. Yeah, I know. Shocker, right? But I'll give you an example of this. My daughter came home from serving a mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Now, granted, we're in the middle of the COVID era, right? So we've got, life is different, you sort of, gone are the days of like giant gatherings at the home to celebrate this event. And so in my mind, we threw out a post on Facebook to friends and family and just said, hey, why didn't everybody just kind of do a drive-by for a half hour that night, wave, and, my daughter can say hello and whatever, and you can say hello. And so that's what went down. But I did not reach out in person to some of my siblings. And that caused some pain. Justifiably so, right? It caused some pain. And so now I'm in this position where I feel bad. I feel terrible about it. I've tried to reach out and apologize, but there's more to it, right? Than just, hey, forgive me. It was an oversight. So,
well, hold on. So
yeah.
When you say there's more to it, there's probably more to it on a couple of levels, right? There's
more
to it. There's more to it than, just an I'm sorry, because there probably is some history, but there's probably more to it in the oversight.
Yeah, for sure. That's a great.
I think that's kind of
insight,
that dog chasing its tail, right? Or chicken and egg, and
right.
Which came first? Did I oversee because I'm not close?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's certainly that's absolutely part of it, right? I mean, I think that we make decisions like that, maybe subconsciously there's this thought that, well, they're not going to want to be there anyway, and so it doesn't really matter to them, and so what the heck, right? Why bother? Now,
you're assuming all over the place, right?
Assuming all over the place, and let me tell you, like, in the middle of it, that wasn't a conscious thought of mine. I mean, I was definitely, you're focused on, I haven't seen my daughter for 18 months, like that's your focus. You're like, I want to see her, but subconsciously, I'm sure that's part of it, And so reaching out and saying, hey, I'm sorry I didn't invite you to this thing, doesn't address the real issues at hand, right?
Can I ask Can I ask really quick how it was brought to your attention that you had left them out? Because I'm sure that was I'm sure that was probably pretty it was probably a jab.
But yeah, it was a kick in the tender spots, you know what I mean? So right. Well, yeah, during this, at the same time this was going on, like my mom had come down to visit my sister up in Los Angeles. And timing, my sister has a son who's autistic, and he's a handful, but man, he's a party animal. Little Jude, shout out to Jude. But so my mom was down there helping my sister out, and timing works out, right? Sydney's coming home at the same time, so my mom and my sister come down, and I think that there's my mom ended up getting a message from my sister who felt left out, and kind of vented her feelings about being left out, and so that's how I found out, man.
And when that vent comes, does old stuff come up with it?
Yeah. I think that, definitely stuff comes up with it. Religion's a sore spot, and, so those things pour out. But when I read that, from when my mom shared that with me, I honestly, it's like this wave of guilt just smashes me in the face,
I know that wave.
Right. Yeah. That's a wave I'm familiar with, and I'm terrible at riding it, but so it smashes me in the face, and I knew immediately, like, shoot, you dropped the ball, man. You should have. This was an opportunity to create goodwill, and I think inadvertently I lit a match and chucked it on the bridge, and so yeah, man, I got to work through that. I got to get to the other side. I gotta build a bridge. I'm a terrible carpenter, so I got things to do.
Well, I think when I remember, as I'm hearing you say these things, I'm remembering an episode actually from this really great podcast called Richest Men in Town.
Tell me about it, man.
And I think it was your voice actually that was saying, someone was talking about how family is chaos. Their family was chaos. And I think you stopped them and said, so what you're saying is your family's normal.
Exactly.
Because chaos in family is normal. And there is this natural thing. And I don't know why. I haven't read the right book or figured this out. I don't know why we are the least thoughtful to the people that we should be closest to.
Yeah.
Can't figure that one out.
Right.
But if you look at my family, there's things.
Yeah.
Right. So I have a brother. My mom married a great guy when we were in high school, and he brought 3 girls to the family. And so we had kind of a reverse Brady Bunch thing, and we were close and we were tight. And then my stepdad passed away. And for whatever reason, I can't put a finger on it, but we're not close. From that, I don't know if things were said in conversations that I wasn't involved in. I can't put an origin on it, but it's been a long time. And who cares the origin? The reality is the reality, that they're not in my life.
So, Mike, how do you go about reversing that, man? What's the steps that we take? I mean, it's easy when someone says forgiveness, right? We look at it on the surface. Yeah, it's easy. I apologize, and they'll accept my apology, and we move on. But I think there's, when so much water passes under that bridge, and we let the things change from maybe what the initial oversight or whatever was, and it becomes this mammoth thing in our own minds. Like, how do we get to that place where we can actually start to affect change in a positive direction?
Think about relationships, right? And think about marriage. And I'm an educator, right? And you're in marketing, so we're in no way claiming.
No way, man.
I have no letters after my name that indicate that I know what I'm talking about right now. But I know
you have 45 years of life, so I'm banking on that, man.
And I know that when Mike and Kelly are arguing about the lid on the toothpaste, we're not arguing about the lid on the toothpaste. and I think sometimes we deflect, right? And I think that the pain or the anger or whatever your family's feeling or my family's feeling, it has a genesis moment.
Yeah.
And I do know this about life, and I do know this about forgiveness. If you have made a mistake and you're trying to make it right without acknowledging the original mistake, you're wasting your time.
Yeah.
Right? You're weed eating versus pulling weeds. You can keep it trim. You can kind of keep it looking like it's not there, but it's always there.
I love that. Yeah, that's great.
Until you actually deal with it. And I will also say this, the challenge with doing it across faith platforms or across faith and folks that maybe don't have an allegiance to or espouse the same.
Yeah, right.
Because I always, it's almost become cliche, but like Jesus is the answer.
Yeah.
But when Jesus isn't the answer for the other person that you're working with.
Yeah. Right.
Ooh,
And
that's difficult.
Yeah. And I feel like, actually, I think I know this, Mike. Like the effort, it takes effort and it takes work, right? And so it's interesting because I sent this person a message and I was just like, hey, I'm sorry, right? And the message that came back was, your apologies don't really mean anything. And I thought, you know what?
That's
that
fair.
stings, but that's fair. Like when I read that, I thought, you're right. It doesn't, man. I mean, we've got to figure out a way to communicate on a deeper level where we can pull the weeds, right?
Well, so recently I stepped in it.
Okay.
I stepped in it with a good friend.
Okay.
And that wave of guilt that you say, right? That you were talking about,
Yeah,
washed over me.
Yeah.
Very similar situation. It was a voicemail informing me of the impact that my actions had. And very similar to your situation, there was an immediate reaction on my part to say sorry. And there was an immediate deficit of trust that was clearly alluded to in the person's response.
Yeah.
And then I followed it with something very sincere that I mean to this day, that I will spend tomorrow and however many tomorrows it takes for you to understand just how sincere that weak ass apology is.
Yeah.
Right? However it looks in their eyes,
Yeah.
it is coming from a sincere place.
Right.
And I truly am sorry, but with it comes a commitment for me to change.
Yeah.
And that, you and I both know that game.
Yeah.
You and I both know that personal change challenge. And that's that's really the spirit of this podcast, right?
Absolutely.
Do better, be better.
Yeah.
But really it's about almost you're asking for a future investment.
Yeah. Well, and it's
if
funny,
you haven't made a deposit,
right? Yeah.
It's really hard to say invest in me, and they say you haven't been in my life.
Yeah.
Because of this other thing.
And perception is reality, right? So it's like the job then becomes, I have to change, I have to work to help shift the perception so there's a new reality. And I think so many times we think, at least look, so many times I think, I'm not going to throw you under the bus, all right? But so many times I think
we're on the same bus.
You got to, this person has to meet me halfway, right? You got to do your part, and then I'll do my part, and then we'll get to the place where we need to be. And as I'm going back and forth to this, I'm like, I've got to do the work. And if I'm committed to the work, then things will change. But I believe things can change, right?
But that halfway thing is tricky. The only thing you can control is you.
Right.
You cannot control. You need to do everything that you can to sleep at night.
Yeah.
And when there's a disturbance, when you're at a deficit, and you have to do everything that you can. Now, you as a person of faith are going to be applying the atonement of Jesus Christ to your heart, and that's what's going to patch the hole.
Right.
And the other folks, you can't control how they solve the problem. You can't even control their heart in wanting to solve the problem.
Right.
But so we have a podcast called The Richest Men in Town, right?
Yeah.
And we've talked in previous episodes about our good friend George Bailey.
Yeah.
We've also talked about Ebenezer Scrooge.
Yeah, right.
And Ebenezer Scrooge was coming from a deficit, a long life of treating people like garbage, including
Yeah.
family. And he took it upon himself to change.
Yeah.
And again, going to the end of that story, he was the best old man the town had ever seen.
Right.
He lived every day like it was Christmas. And he walked the walk.
Yeah.
He changed. People can change, and we can change in a second. Now, I've let you in a little bit on my situation. I am a brother to 3 sisters. Why aren't they in my life?
Yeah.
And what am I doing about it so that in true richest men in town fashion, I can live that full life and be void of offense to anybody?
Yeah.
You know, in my mind, I think at the end of this thing, and I think it is important to begin with the end in mind. I think that's a key to being successful and effective. It's Covey, it's whatever.
Agreed. Yeah.
But in my mind, I want to be, it'd be awesome if there could be like 5 words to describe Mike Freeman. And charitable would be a great word. Nobody wants to be like tinkling brass. Nobody wants to be like, yeah, I saw his lips moving, but I didn't believe a word that he said.
Yeah. And I think sometimes we hang on to these things, right? There's whatever the perceived slight or the perceived, offense may be. And we think, well, I'm going to forgive, but I'm going to leave that right there, because if something comes back around, boom, I'm chucking it in your face. Right. Holland gives a great talk about that, right? He says,
oh yeah, the mud.
Right. You're picking up the mud and you're throwing it back at him. And it's so true, right? I mean, so.
Well, to hold you accountable and to hold myself accountable as well, we cannot.
Yeah, right.
We cannot engage in that, because it is clear. The books you believe, the books I believe to be the word of God, it is clear that if you're doing that to others, that will be done to you.
Yeah.
How you're measuring other people, if you're keeping score and you're giving lip service saying, I forgive you, but you've got it at the ready and you're keeping score, and at any given point, you're going to sling it and say, see, here we are again.
Yeah.
And here's the laundry list.
Yeah.
And guess what? There's going to be a laundry list waiting for you.
For sure.
That will not be to anyone's advantage.
Yeah.
To be there, right? So we really do that forgive and forget. Now, I will say this, the things that I've learned in life, we are commanded to forgive. He does not give a time frame.
Absolutely.
He does not say, yeah, that person that destroyed your life with one choice, you have to forgive, and it has to be done right now.
Right.
I think that there are times where everyone's got their agency, and there are choices that really fry us, actually really put us in precarious situations, and could even be life-changing mistakes that other people have made. And it is on us to forgive.
Yeah.
I've always added eventually, and with the caveat that tomorrow is not promised.
For sure. And I think
you can't be holding out, right?
Right.
That Mike and the Mechanic song, In the Living Years. Right. I wish I could have told him in the living years, like, you have a window where you don't want to have things unsaid. You just don't.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's important to, I like your thought about time, I mean, obviously the sooner we can come to terms with things and make those changes, the better. But I think it's important for us to process our emotions, right? And understand what we're feeling and why we're feeling. And I think if we're honest in that self-assessment, it helps us move past, because the reality is this, right? There's been times where I've held on to things, and I've been upset. I felt like I've been done wrong, and I'm looking at that thing and I'm trying to process my emotions and why I'm so upset by that. And sometimes my self-assessment, if I'm honest, comes back, your pride's hurt, your ego's bruised, you're this, you're that, but it doesn't mean anything, right? That means nothing over the relationship. And so I think that if we can, here's the trick though, get to the point where you can be honest with yourself.
Well, honest is important because I think if you rush that and you don't have that reflection, it's going to come across as disingenuous. It's going to come across, and this thing doesn't have to be Nobel Peace Prize winning. It can be ugly. It can be real, right? You may not have the words. You may be standing in front of that person and wanting to articulate how you feel, and you don't have the words to do it. The key is go stand in front of that person.
Although it would be nice to do it in a room with flags around us and a document that we both signed, right? I mean, that would be a good thing. It would be
nice. I think of forgiveness and I think of Corrie ten Boom's The Hiding Place, right? And it's an amazing book. And I think I've probably even talked about it here, on the podcast. Forgiveness does come up with our guests because it is part of that. It is part of that life. And we can't have blind spots.
Yeah.
Blind spots are dangerous, and we can't be walking around thinking we're one thing if there are other people that have evidence to the contrary. And that's not fair.
Yeah.
But that is how it is. If we're trying to be authentic, if we're trying to live with integrity, if we're trying to be intentional, we can't have some people that we do that to. People that we do that with. Corrie ten Boom, so she tells the story of Nazi invasion. She's a Christian. She's in concentration camps. The guards are atrocious to them. At the end of the war, they go around touring post-war Europe, preaching the gospel of Jesus Christ. And she's at a venue talking about the horrific things that she endured for her faith. And a guard comes up at the end of her fireside and says, "Sister, I am so sorry for the things that I've done. I've since turned my life over to Jesus Christ. Can you forgive me?" And she says, in her mind, "No way possibly can I do this." But in her heart, she says a prayer. "God, I will be an instrument. You please provide the feeling. I'm going to reach out and extend my hand of fellowship to this person. You provide the love." And she extends the hand to shake the brother's hand, and head to toe, she feels the love that God has for that man. And she is truly able to say, "I forgive you."
Yeah, that's a powerful...
Now, there's nothing you're dealing with.
Yeah.
There's nothing you're dealing with that even measures closely to that. And if forgiveness is possible there, right?
Yeah, because I think that we build this, we self-insulate, right? So we say, well, life is great, things are going good for me, everything is grand, and then in our quiet moments, we have this self-reflection, and those things creep back in, and we.
You know what I call that?
What do you call that?
My side yard. Right? Everybody's got a front yard. We keep that grass nice and green, right, nice and short. We might even have backyard barbecues. We keep the backyard looking good. Don't ever come to my side yard. And everybody's got a side yard. And I really think we cannot afford to live our lives like that.
That's right. Right. So when we have that self-reflection and we look at our side yard and we see the shape it's in, we've got to, in order for us to have fulfillment on a full level, right? We've got to go We got to cut the grass on the side yard, man.
You've got to address it. It doesn't have to go away immediately.
No.
Right. And a lot of times it isn't, because a lot of times those things have had years to grow, and it's become an infested thing. You've been ignoring it. And that's why I think it's really important to have that reflection. Yeah. You and I right now could take out a piece of paper and write a list.
For sure.
And we don't ever want to do that.
No. That list is ugly to look at. but this is good though, because honestly, this has been on my mind for a few weeks now, that things have to be repaired. Now, I understand the time frame and the timeline is not for me to control, and I'm okay with that. But what I want to do, and especially after this discussion right here, what I want to do is step onto the path and start walking towards the goal of repairing things, right?
So is it clear in your mind why it needs to be repaired?
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Because when I hear you say that, I hear your words. That's the problem with having a podcast, Tyler Gould. You have recorded words out there.
That's right. Yeah.
You shared a story about somebody who came to you and said, "Hey, I don't cast off people. Yeah. I collect people."
Right.
And really, if you think about it, as we do the work of forgiving or seeking forgiveness, we add people.
Yeah. That's right. I love that.
As we ignore that work,
we
write people off.
Yeah. That's
we
great.
say, you know what? You used to mean a lot to me. And we used to have a relationship that added some things to my life, and I've deemed it not necessary anymore.
You don't merit the effort. Yeah, that's brutal.
When you say it like that, that's brutal. Because in my mind, when I said I could sit down and write a list, I've actually started that in my mind already.
Yeah.
And to attach that disclaimer to every name on that list, that's a problem.
Yeah.
I don't want someone saying when Mike Freeman dies, like, about time that guy died. Right?
Yeah. No, that's not the farewell I'd like to.
Exactly. Yeah. And I don't need it kumbaya. I don't need it what it was.
Right.
I can't have it toxic. I don't need the side yard to look as beautiful as the front yard. I have to have it addressed though.
Yeah.
I have to be able to, I can't just pick and choose who I want to act like a disciple of Jesus Christ to and who I want to write off and treat like garbage.
Man.
Right?
Freaking side yard, bro.
Yeah, we should both, in our show notes, we should take pictures of our side yard.
Mine's looking pretty raggedy, dude.
Like seriously, on a side yard note,
yeah.
I still have a box from Christmas in my side yard.
I still have wood from building a ramp with Quinn probably 5 years ago that's in a pile over
there. So to quote Stephen Mitchell, right?
Yeah. So
what are you going to do about it?
That's right.
Right. What does that work look like? I'll tell you a quick little story. Story. Man, that's the problem with being people person, right? People person. You have a lot of relationships, and sometimes you manage them well, and sometimes you don't. And I was good friends with a family. Some things happen, and we just stopped being good friends. And professionally, I had an opportunity to have a conversation with someone in this family, and it's like, you know what? You want to get together and have lunch? And it was that easy. We got together and had lunch. We reconnected. He let me in on his life. I let him in on my life. And it was like richest men in town therapy at lunch.
Yeah.
And it was an amazing opportunity for me to reconnect. And I have a standing monthly appointment with this guy.
I
to
love
have
that.
lunch because he makes my life better, because that's what originally brought us together as friends. And some petty stuff happened that I can't even put a label on.
Right.
I can't, I don't, was it me? Probably. Right. Was I not
Right.
being thoughtful? Probably. But like, let's come together and let's set the stage for us to sit down and try to be friends again. Right. Because I can't afford to lose friends.
Yeah.
Friends, this network, right? This thing that helps me, iron sharpens iron. I can't be in the business of saying, nope, sorry. And now, as I say that, I shudder to think that there may be some people that hear this episode and say, that's not been my experience with Mike Freeman.
Yeah.
That's not okay.
No, I agree.
Because I look at my list of 5 words I want to be described as. Hypocrite isn't one.
Yeah. Right. No. So
Right?
look, here's what it comes down to then, right? We've had this unbelievable opportunity over the last, how long have we been doing this, Mike? 2 months, 3 months?
Yeah, 3 months.
Right, 3 months. So over the last 3 months, we've had this great opportunity to sit down with people and learn some things, right? And so here we are. We've both given at least a brief glimpse of the side yard, right?
Yeah.
And now
Feeling very vulnerable right now.
Yes, now I'm feeling like slightly ashamed of my side yard. But I want to take the things that we've sat and listened to for 3 months and put them to work for me in fixing, or at least rolling the mower out of the garage towards the side yard.
Yeah,
right?
Because I think that the 3 months have taught us something about intentionality.
Yeah.
Right? Living intentionally and having conversation. And I think a lot of times having conversation with ourselves. So if you were to have that reflection and you were to ask yourself, so I have this gift, Tyler. I don't know if I've ever shared with you this gift. I have this gift when I'm not feeling well, and I'll know it's food poisoning because in my mind, I'll just replay the things I've eaten. And when I hit the thing that is making me sick,
the Baysider.
Right? But think about that emotion, like in our relationships.
Yeah.
If you go back to that relationship and you're pondering about that relationship in your relationship with that particular individual, and you just asked your question, why am I not close with that person? You're going to go through and you're probably going to see some things that you need to address. Definitely they have some ownership in this.
For sure.
But
who cares?
You can't do that.
Right? Yeah. It's funny because I was talking to someone today and they know this sibling of mine and they said, oh yeah, I've met her and blah, blah, they were kind of filling me in on their interaction. And I said, man, she is the funniest, the most fun. And as I'm like telling them all these things that are great about her, and I was like, man, you gotta fix that, man, because that's important, right? And like you said, whether it becomes what it was or not is unimportant. But what I need to,
you cannot attach conditions.
Absolutely.
It is not on you. That is not the game.
Right.
You're not going to say, I'm going to meet you halfway. I'm going to do this. You're going to do that. And we're going to be friends again.
Yeah.
You can own your part and say, on my part, I'm going to fix what I've made a mistake, and I'm going to commit. As a middle school principal, I gave lessons all the time on what makes a good apology, right?
Yeah.
You seal the deal of a great apology with a commitment that you're going to try to do everything you can moving forward to avoid that thing happening again. Nobody's perfect.
Yeah.
But you don't just say sorry, but you get specific.
Yeah.
And you say, I'm sorry that I did this.
Yeah.
I have an understanding and I'm empathizing that this thing really hurt your feelings. If you can't name a thing, that's okay. Again, this doesn't have to be the most amazing speech ever or the most amazing email or letter. It has to be an effort, a sincere effort from your heart to theirs, trying to patch it up.
Yep.
And get ready. It may come back in your face.
Yeah. And that's okay. I feel like, right, progress is not always the prettiest thing at the onset, right? But it can become something beautiful if we continue pushing that forward.
So the question I would just throw out to the room would be, you probably have some excuses that you've played before why you haven't done this.
For sure. Dude, I got him at the ready. Do you want him or do we?
So right now you're having this moment, and this moment, it might be burning pretty hot. This moment will pass. It'd be great if we can act on it while it's hot. But when those excuses surface, what's your plan?
Yeah. So as we've been talking through this, I've been thinking about that, right? Because at the end of this, it all comes back to what in the world are we going to do about it? Right. And so I am separated right now by a couple hours with this person, distance wise. And I am going to I'm going to make a face-to-face out of this, man. Like this can't be, for me, right? From where I'm at, from where I'm sitting at, looking at this, you know, I want this person to understand how much I care about our relationship. And for me, I don't feel like a text message or an email will convey that the way it needs to be conveyed. And so my plan is to go in person. I've already proposed this, by the way, but my plan is to make this a reality. And so I'm going to work on that. And furthermore, I'm going to work on that before we get to the holidays, to be in person. And if nothing else, convey my apologies and my love for this person. You know, as I mentioned earlier, I was talking to someone and I was describing my relationship. Funny, just unbelievably smart, just this and that. And as I was saying those things, I just had the thought as I was telling this person that I thought, dude, like, why wouldn't you have this person in your life? You know, why wouldn't you? So that's my plan, Mike. I'm going to go in person. I'm going to sit down. I'm going to have a conversation, and I am going to push the lawnmower a little bit closer to my side yard. What now? Look.
I was waiting for it.
This is an equal opportunity podcast, right? So let's go back to Mike's sisters, and let's talk about that, and what you hope to do to push that a little further down the road in the right direction.
All right, so I'm going to start by stoking that fire a little bit.
Okay.
Right, so that fire to make change is going to be stoked. There's a talk by Thomas S. Monson in April 2002 General Conference called Hidden Wedges. Ooh, right. I think he talks about the story of a tree.
I've heard. Yeah, this is a great talk, man.
Right,
Great
and just
talk.
Through some negligence, it was destructive over time. And I think that's going to stoke that fire. Even just talking about it gets me pretty inspired to do something about it. I am going to reach out to all three of my sisters. You know what? By extension, I'm not as close as I need to be with my brother as well. So I'm going to reach out to my siblings, and I'm going to reestablish those connections. And similar to my friend, I'm going to see if there's a way that I can prioritize connecting with my siblings. Maybe that's a great Sunday activity, right? Where I just call around the horn. Maybe with technology, we all just jump on a FaceTime.
Yeah.
There's something that can be done. I remember when you moved away, I don't know if you remember this, but you wrote me a letter. And you said that the world is really a small place. I think about that all the time. The world is really a small place. And I can find my sisters. Now, I can use that distance as an excuse. And I have. Or, I don't know what they're up to. They've moved. I don't know necessarily where they live. So I can't just like drop in. Right? Those are all really weak excuses. And so I need to push through those. And for now, I think that the connection of them hearing my voice and me hearing their voice and me saying the things that need to be said, not doing an autopsy on what happened, but recommitting to have them in my life and expressing love for them. September's a difficult month, right? My stepdad passed away. They lost a dad. I see those posts come up on Facebook, right? We're Facebook friends, but that we need to be closer. I need to be in their lives, right? We talk about a river running through our lives. Our kids are getting older. The things I'm going through, my nieces and nephews are going through things, and they could use an Uncle Mike.
Yeah.
And so I need to reestablish that. I need to make that connection and be intentional about it and collect those people back in my life.
All right. So a couple things. One,
and that's not even close to the last of my list.
That's a good start, man. But let me just say, there's a couple things there. One, I'm impressed that I wrote a letter. All right, so that's that's impressive. It's been a long time since I've written a letter, man. Two,
I still have it, brother.
Two, I think that you're spot on, man. I think that in order to push things forward, right? I just feel like life, it's weird, Mike, right? Because I'm 45 years old. I have a daughter at college, and I've got a son getting ready to leave on a mission for the church, and I'm very aware right now at this point in my life that time is fleeting, right? And I don't want time to get away from me without saying the things that need to be said to the people that matter most in my life. And through whatever justification or list of excuses, I've tried to convince myself that maybe certain people don't belong on the list of important. And the reality is nothing could be further from the truth. I know my life is richer with them in it. And so I've got to reach out and do whatever I can to have even a morsel of that relationship in my life. So I'm committed, Mike. I'm committed to doing some things, and I'm committed to making some progress before the holidays. Now, will we have the kumbaya moment with a fire pit and my side yard? Probably not. But it will not be for a lack of trying. It will not be for a lack of effort, and I will do that. I know you will.
Well, I want to do a shout out to Tim Spiker's book, The Only Leaders Worth Following. And he makes this analogy, and I think this is a valuable thing because you've hit on a difficult subject. And he makes this analogy of a tree. And as leaders, I would say we're all leaders, right? Or trying to be of influence or trying to live lives with integrity. The roots in that analogy are effective. People of influence are inwardly sound and others minded, or centered on others, and ego is not a part of their game. Mm-hmm. And I think that as we do this work of patching up relationships, of reaching out and extending forgiveness, seeking forgiveness, I think that will strengthen our roots as individuals. And these are crazy times. And I know it may not seem like this would lead to our downfall, but it could.
Yeah.
Right? Because who's to say you don't write off other people?
That's right.
If you've written off one or two, who's to say that you don't, who's to say that other relationships that right now are valuable prove to be expendable because circumstances have allowed it. And I think that to be consistent, again, perfect is elusive. Yeah. And I'm not saying that Mike Freeman or Tyler Gould, that's not it. I am saying that we have faith, and that faith can allow for some perfection, some rough stone, right? Some rough pieces to be chipped off.
Yeah.
But by doing this work, that is the process. And if this is the most important thing, recently, so we started a blog with our church group, and one of the things that I shared was a quote. Harold B. Lee said way back in the day, "The most important commandment is the one you're struggling with."
Yeah, it's a great quote.
That's a powerful quote. And when you think about the commandment to forgive, if that hits a nerve and we're not responsive to that, and we're not developing in that area where we know there's work to be done, that is a weakness. And unfortunately, in 2020, we just can't afford to have weaknesses exploited.
Yeah.
Right. And so doing that work is going to make us more rich because we will be adding those people to our lives. I'm thinking of good friends that just aren't in my life anymore.
Yeah.
And you can go back. And the funny thing is the narrative is even a script in my mind.
Yeah.
There's excuses why I haven't reached out to them, but the narrative of what went down is almost like a false tradition.
Right. Yeah.
I have a story, but they probably have a different story, and none of it is true, but so much time has gone by, and it's like this shouldn't be.
And at the end of it, right, the story doesn't matter.
The story does not matter.
It doesn't
Excuses don't matter. Those are things that if we're going to try to live the life that I know you want to live, man, and I know I want to live, that's the work that nobody wants to do.
Yeah.
That's the work that nobody wants to do. And that leads, I was talking to that, in our pre-call, I was talking about that Ryan Holiday book, The Obstacle is the Way.
Yeah.
And that's on the pile, right?
Yeah,
and that's the next read, because I really think that we should be looking, what is the obstacle right now, right? What is that thing that is in the way? And what's on the other side of that?
Yeah.
I shared with you that thought from Jennifer Gonzalez, Cult of Pedagogy, right? She's honoring Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who recently passed away.
Yeah.
And Ruth Bader Ginsburg is quoted saying, so often in life, things that you regard as an impediment turn out to be great, good fortune. This thing that is an impediment right now in our lives, these broken relationships, hopefully there's not a ton, right? Hopefully you're not turning the page and like you've got a legal pad full of broken relationships, right? But there's enough there to be an impediment. And what if that impediment, what if that obstacle actually proved to be great for blessing your life with those people coming back in your life, but also making you a better person in the development, in your own development by doing that work.
Yeah. I love it. I think that, you mentioned the topic of intentionality that's surfaced with multiple guests on Richest Men in Town. And I think that is something I want to apply to this, right? To be intentional, to be self-aware. I think Nate Ward talked about being self-aware, right? The brain, that's an open loop. Right.
And the brain keeps that open and it's spinning. And every time you go to close your eyes, you probably have to push through that.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Yeah. And so I think that this is good. I'm excited, actually.
Well,
I'm excited about the work.
The challenge with us and the conversations that we have on a weekly basis, it's got me rethinking a lot of things, and I've posed this question in my mind the last week is just, if this life is a game, what is the scoreboard? Right? What matters? What should I be chasing? And what if I'm chasing things that don't even come up on the scoreboard?
Right.
And I can tell you right now, one thing that is definitely not on the scoreboard is how many broken relationships can you
No, but I think on the scoreboard is relationships. Right?
And I think on the scoreboard too would be opportunities.
Yeah. Yeah.
When you were presented with that opportunity, or when you had a chance to create that opportunity, what did you do with it?
Yeah.
Right? Almost like, I know talents, right? If you were given X amount of talents, did you come here and bury them? Or did you try to develop them? I'm sure that would be on the scoreboard. We've talked about people in the funeral, right? We talked about people in the funeral service. Does it matter that you have a packed house? No, but I'm pretty sure that you don't want a parade of people that are excited that you died.
Yeah, or a mob outside outside.
Or a protester,
Yeah, right. Yeah. Well, and I think too, I think of that, we talked about that poem early on in Richest Men in Town about lighting the candles of others, right? And the thought is always, are we purposefully passing people by that we could light, right? And I don't want to be in that position. I don't want to be in that position. I want to live up, and
think about it, like if they're struggling right now.
Mm-hmm.
If they're struggling and you could be a source of strength for them.
Yeah.
Or what if you were the stumbling block?
Right.
This life is hard enough.
Yeah.
Can you imagine if something that you said or did caused somebody else to stumble, to leave a path? Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is good work. This is good work tonight.
You chose a biggie, man. You didn't start off with the nice little appetizer. It was like,
skip the hors d'oeuvres and we go straight to the meal. And it turns out it was turkey with heavy gravy, right? So
you know what, I love it though, because this work is about transformation.
Yeah.
I think every great story, right? I mean, we're wired to love stories of transformation. I think that's why I love this that's why I love this show, because we do get into that. We get into tiny hinges and we get into moments where, people make choices and those choices transform their lives and the lives of people that they have in their life. But I will say this, topics, promptings, like the ones you and I have felt in our time together tonight,
Yeah.
burn bright, but cool off.
Amen.
Cool off really quick. So you and I, we've got to commit. We've got to commit to checking in. We got to commit to holding each other accountable, because you have a script that is waiting to be played.
Absolutely.
We're going to leave this meeting and you're going to be reaching out and you're going to have to push through some of that noise that's going to come up. Oh, you're really going to reach out to that person? You remember what that person did to you? You remember why? It's been 20 years. Why are you going to, all of that?
Right.
All of that. I think of Nate Warden's Screw Tape Letters and just that that tempter that's in your ear. You know?
Well, we're going to do something with this. I'm excited about the opportunity to one, take action and do something, and two, to have Mike Freeman harass me about it and see if
I'm following your lead, man. I'm walking where you're walking. You're out there. You're going to be trying to reforge those relationships, and I'm going to follow the same commitment pattern.
So we will let's check in here periodically on the show about where we're at with this process, because let's be real about it. It is a process, right? There is no, hey, let's have lunch, boom, we're done, that was a great burrito and now we're finished, right? This is a process, and I would even say proportionally to the depth of the relationship that they had in our life, will be the depth of the process to bring that back. Yeah. And I think that, much like the process of repentance and conversion, I want this process to be the same depth as that, because I think that our relationships, they demand that kind of attention. And so I want to be committed to that. I'm going to be committed to that. And I know that it's going to hurt at times in this process, but I'm okay with that, because I want to begin, as you said, with the end in mind. And so any hiccups, they're going to happen, man. We'll get there. And I don't care who you are. I don't care where you're at in life. I don't care where you live, what you make, what you do. Turning to somebody and saying you dropped the ball, that's hard. That's hard. And there's a reason why people don't turn and do that work. Yeah. And a lot of times it's just easy to, you know what, I'm going to go play in the backyard. Yes, exactly. Exactly. Well, let's do it. Good stuff. Good stuff, Tyler Gould. Well, it's been good, Mike. I mean, look, this is what I'm hoping, right, that this is what the show affords you and I, and hopefully our other listeners, is the opportunity to be introspective about where we're at and be honest with ourselves about where we're at, and then look at those weak spots and see what we can do to fortify those and make those strengths, right? I'm thinking of Nate Ward right now. Yeah. Right? I'm thinking of Chad Richards, and I'm thinking of all of our guests. I'm even thinking of our latest guest, David Hill. Yeah. Keeping that heart soft is huge. Yeah. In our progression, and making sure that we're not doing things that will intentionally harden our hearts towards anybody is going to be so important. If we're hard-hearted to the ones we love, how are we ever going to love the stranger? Yeah. How are we going to ever love ourselves? Right. Yeah. Got to push through and rip that thing open and let it heal. Yeah, that's it. So one thing I'm fairly confident. Let me say that. I'm fairly confident in the idea. You went from totally to fairly. I know. I dialed it back, man. I bailed out. But I'm fairly confident that you and I are not unique in our need to repair relationships and to seek forgiveness. And so I'm hoping that in this discussion, that there's others out there that are going to find the capacity, the ability, the desire to repair some things in their lives as well.
So Tyler Gould, right now, I've said this before to guests, so
Yeah.
I'll extend the medicine. Right now, you could be in someone's ear, and the subject of forgiveness is rattling around in their brain, and they maybe have had faces of people come to their mind. What would you say to them?
I would say lean into the process, right? I'd go straight back to Alan Michael, and I'd say lean into the process of repairing that relationship, and understand that the process isn't easy, and understand that the process is going to hurt sometimes, but understand ultimately that if we do it the right way with the right spirit in mind, that there's good things to come at the end of that process.
And it'll add people, it'll add richness, and it'll add to the self.
Yeah.
I would say, to answer that, I would say also remember Nate Ward's counsel to be kind to yourself.
Yeah. Be patient with yourself.
And
right?
that you can't beat yourself up. This isn't about beating yourself up, right? This isn't about Stephen Mitchell and going out back and beating yourself with reeds.
Right.
This is about acknowledging it, owning up to the idea that you are not perfect, that you are human, and that as human, we make mistakes, and being kind with yourself and patient with yourself, but don't justify it away.
Right.
Being kind. And then if you think about what Nate Ward said about being self-aware,
right.
You know it's there. Do something about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think
build a bridge. How hard is it? How hard is it to build a bridge?
How hard could it be to build a bridge?
We've had Toby Crawford on. He's designed bridges before. Come on,
cut a couple trees down, you throw them over the water, bingo. You got a bridge. Come on. It's not rocket science.
Build a bridge. Come on.
Well, look, let's keep each other accountable, and and I would say this too, Mike. If there's people that listen to this and choose and would like to share their experience with us, I would love to get your emails about this topic, right? Because
I would even say this. The show from the beginning has been the premise, like, we're trying to get better.
Yeah.
If there are listeners out there, and there's somebody who has done this, who has done this work.
Teach us.
Who has forgiven themselves and forgiven other people, by all means, we'd love to invite that person on the show to teach us, right? So that we might be able to do that work. I think I think that's a powerful thing. This show, if someone were to catch me and say, what is this thing about? It's about if you or I got a phone call tomorrow and we were diagnosed and you were given a month, what would you do with that month? That's what this show's about. It's about living with that level of intentionality without the diagnosis. But if I was diagnosed with a month, I would call my sisters.
Yeah.
I would reach out to some friends and I would say, hey, old friend, you need to know you're woven in the stories that I tell my kids. And I'm not sure what happened, but let's just bring it back. And I think that that's it, right? If we could do that without the diagnosis, but live that level of rich and collect people.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's going to be work, man. It's going to be work. But I love when you quote Alan Michael Boston, because the process doesn't always yield results.
Right.
You're going to go in and you have this kumbaya thing.
Right.
Temper that, brother. Because you're dealing with a perfectly imperfect human being on the other end of that. Yeah. And just know that you can do what you can do.
That's it, right? We can only control what we can control, and the rest is...
And you commit to future, that you're not going to be that person again, and that you're going to do everything you can to be more thoughtful and inclusive in your life. Man, I appreciate you bearing it. I appreciate you just bearing your soul and turning the lights on, all the ugly, right?
Why not? You got to share these things with you and 5,000 of your closest friends, right? So
I'll be next. All
right. Well, I do appreciate it though, Mike. I mean, these conversations are important, and they're important for me. And I hope that someone else is listening and they find it important as well. But let's just do the work. Let's come back. Let's keep this conversation going, and let's make some changes.
Let's do it. I'm in. I appreciate the opportunity for me to make some changes and build some bridges.
All right, Mike Freeman, have a good night. It's been fun as always.
Yeah, let's do it again next week.
Why not?
Good idea, Ernie. A toast to my big brother George, the richest man in town.